Friday morning, South Florida. We are waking up to cooler temperature readings around North Florida, 44 in Tallahassee, Gainesville at 46, Orlando at 58. And as we move on over towards the East Coast, 68 in Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, 73 degrees in Key West. And the radar is showing that at least it is mostly dry throughout your morning commute, but we literally have a front over us, and that will leave us with a chance of showers. Now, the radar is only picking up a few dotted showers well off the coast at this hour. And we're going to be looking at clearing skies going into the afternoon. And that's why conditions are a little bit different around North and Central Florida, because the front is over us. So we're seeing improving conditions on the back end. So there's a wind advisory in effect for several counties from the lake area to Central Florida. And because we're expecting the air to be extra dry with low humidity from North Florida into Tampa, there's a brush fire warning in effect until 6 o'clock tonight. But wind advisories will likely be issued later on today, maybe extending more towards the south. Small craft advisory in effect until Monday in the morning. Now, we do have quiet conditions around the nation's midsection and out west, just some spotty snow showers moving into the mid-Atlantic states. And because the front is still over us, we'll have about a 40 to 50% rain chance in the forecast, and then starting to dry up nicely late this afternoon. By Saturday, much drier and seasonal temperature-wise, but we'll have those strong winds in place. Unfortunately, swimming and boating won't be advised. Your marine forecast has a small craft advisory, risk of rip currents for swimmers. Bay waters are rough and becoming rough in the coastal waters of the Keys. Next high tide at 11:37 this morning between Dade and Broward, 102 this afternoon in the lower Keys. Highs today will range close to 80 degrees. We'll see some cloud cover, partly cloudy skies in place for the Keys, and partly cloudy skies in place all across the board for tonight, with lows in the 60s, close to 70 degrees. And on your extended outlook, we'll have mostly dry weather over the weekend. It will be windy at least through Monday, and much warmer and above average midweek. That's your 7 on 7. Good morning, South Florida. We're waking up to mild temperature readings, 70 in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, even West Kendall, with breezy winds and windy at times between 15 to 23 miles per hour along the East Coast. But today we're going from windy to breezy all around, and it could drive in the occasional quick shower. Now, if your morning commute takes you through portions of South Florida right now, we do have some light rain, especially around Coral Springs, Parkland, Tamarack, Margate, and Plantation, and that's clipping the Florida Turnpike. Also around Hialeah and Okeechobee Road, we have some rain, some sprinkles around Key Biscayne, and the Florida Keys mostly dry with the majority of the activity to the south. Now, there is a dense smoke advisory still in effect until 9 o'clock this morning for Collier County, because that brush fire is still churning out there and it hasn't been completely contained. We do have that persistent breeze, and unfortunately, a small craft advisory remains in effect for boaters until 7 o'clock this morning, and it will likely be extended. Now, the big view is showing we have a front producing severe type storms around Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, even Tennessee at this hour, and that's where we're finding a severe thunderstorm watch in effect. On the back end, conditions are starting to dry up, but the severe weather potential will be present around these locations, with a slight risk of seeing isolated tornadoes, damaging winds, and even large hail. So here's what we can expect. We have high pressure starting to weaken, which is why we're going from windy to breezy, and occasionally it will drive in an isolated shower. It should be mostly dry and seasonal temperature wise, but then as we go into Thursday, we'll have a slight chance of seeing some shower activity ahead of a very weak front. Ahead of this front will also be very warm, with above average temperatures expected through the weekend. Your marine forecast has a small craft advisory once again. High risk of rip currents for swimmers, with seas building 5 to 9 feet, especially out in the Gulf Stream waters. And it's rough in the Keys with an advisory as well. Seas building outside the reef 7 to 10 feet. 3:58 this afternoon is the next high tide in Miami, 5:41 in Key West. Otherwise, for today, high temperatures will range in the upper 70s. We'll have peaks of sun going into tonight. more clouds settle in. We can't rule out seeing a fast-moving shower with lows in the upper 60s to low 70s. And on your extended outlook, yes, it will be breezy at least through Wednesday, above average temperature-wise. But from Thursday and Friday, we'll introduce a chance of a few showers. Overall, not looking too bad as we spring forward. On Sunday, daylight saving begins. And yes, we lose an hour of sleep, so don't forget to set those clocks forward 1 hour before you go to bed on Saturday night. That's your 7 on 7.
Good morning, South Florida. We're waking up into the 60s and 70s. Right now it's 68 degrees in Fort Lauderdale, 67 in Miami, 69 in Kendall, to 72 degrees in Key West, with the radar showing that at least it's mostly dry. The majority of the rain pushed well offshore late last night, associated with a front that crossed through, but occasionally we'll see some rain wrapping around that front. And right now we do have an isolated shower impacting the Keys, but you should have a smooth ride today. No complaints in Broward and Miami-Dade weather-wise, and around the Florida Keys between Duck Key and Marathon, we just have a light shower around the overseas highway. So here's the big view. We have the front well off the coast, bringing in occasional showers to central Florida, parts of South Florida as well. But where we're finding snow, that's around the Rockies, moving into the Midwest, where it's going to turn heavier with gusty winds, creating difficult travel conditions. But around the nation's midsection and the deep south, very dry air, also strong winds developing, and that means that brush fire concerns will be present over here throughout today. Right now it's 29 in Salt Lake City, 49 in Kansas City, to 44 in the Big Apple. So here's what we can expect outside of an isolated shower this morning. It should be a dry one. Going into tomorrow, more of the same with warm sunshine and above average temperature readings in the afternoon. Saturday will be sunny, and then on Sunday we'll watch for a front to cross through with very little fanfare, just to reinforce the beautiful weather. Your marine forecast has no advisories. Bay waters are at a moderate chop. Coastal waters of the Florida Keys too. Seas building 3 to 5 feet outside the reef, with the next high tide in Miami happening at 6 o'clock tonight. Key Largo 6:17. Otherwise, today high temperatures will range in the mid to upper 70s. By tonight, 60s once again, with just a little bit of cloud cover. And on your extended outlook, count on a quiet weather pattern through the weekend, at least through Wednesday. More of the same, with above average high temperatures well into the 80s. That's your 7.
Good morning, South Florida. Hopefully everyone's off to a great start. Right now it's 57 in Fort Lauderdale, 59 degrees in Miami, 60 in West Kendall, with the breeze out of the cooler air direction, and we are talking about out of the northwest, and that will continue to draw in that steady supply of cool air from the north. Overall, we are looking excellent for your morning drive. It is mostly dry right now in Broward County, and you should have a smooth commute in Miami-Dade extending into the lower Florida Keys. We also have cold weather advisories for the North Florida from Panama City, Tallahassee. Hard freeze warning in effect, and also there is a hard freeze warning that extends especially all the way into Jacksonville, around sections of North Florida into Gainesville. There is just a freeze warning until Thursday morning. The Northeast seeing less snow. The majority of that snow is moving into Canada, around Quebec, Toronto, into the Great Lakes. Quiet around the Central Plains. But then we move on over to the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest, dealing with rain to snow and flood concerns. Right now it's 21 in Kansas City, 12 degrees. Very cold in Minneapolis, 24 degrees in the Big Apple. Our forecast is calling for cool sunshine with high pressure and firm control around the nation's midsection. But tonight, when the skies completely clear out, it's going to get colder, with temperature readings into the low 50s to upper 40s around the interior locations. And then by Friday, for St. Patrick's Day, beautiful, keeping things dry, with temperature readings slowly moderating back to where we should be over the weekend. Small craft advisory is in effect. Bay waters are choppy. Coastal waters of the Florida Keys are becoming rough. Next high tide at 10:56 this morning in Miami, 11:11 in Key Largo, with forecast highs only reaching 70 degrees. By tonight, you need to have the layers with you. Keep the layers with you through Friday. Over the weekend, you'll be putting them away all the way through Tuesday. That's your 7 on 7.
Good Friday morning, South Florida. We're waking up to mild readings in the 60s. 66 degrees in Fort Lauderdale. Good morning to you over in downtown, 67. 64 in Pembroke Pines, to 71 degrees currently in Key West. Winds have been very light, anywhere between 3 and 8 miles per hour to the north-northwest.
humidity pretty high this morning. Now, as far as your morning commute is concerned, it is nice and dry out there in Broward County at this time, Miami-Dade 2. Now, the Florida Keys, there's only one spotty shower approaching Boca Chica. Majority of the activity well to the south. Now the big view is showing that there's a strong line of showers and storms moving into the mid-Atlantic states, capable of producing some severe weather. But when we have colder air, that's where it's turning into snow and steady snow around parts of New England. On the back end, looking beautiful around the nation's midsection, and then out west we have more cloudiness starting to develop. So the Pacific Northwest will be dealing with onshore rains and high elevation snows that will be moving into the Rockies this weekend. So here's a large temperature contrast happening across the country with this front around the mid-Atlantic states. 27 in Chicago, 26 in Kansas City, and then we have 54 in Atlanta to 61 in Dallas. And anytime we have this happening, that's why we see a mess developing. But this front will continue to get weaker and weaker as it pushes towards the south, and we're going to continue with plenty of sunshine here in South Florida with high temperatures in the 80s going into Saturday. Sunday, more of the same. Then late Sunday, we'll watch an area of low pressure front developing in the Gulf, because this will push our way on Monday, increasing our chances for rain. And we're talking about a 30% for both Monday and Tuesday. Quite unsettled with showers and storms, and then after that, drying up nicely. Your marine forecast right now has no advisories, looking wonderful around the bay waters, nice and smooth, something we haven't seen in quite some time. Coastal waters of the Keys at a light chop. Next high tide at 6:53 tonight for Dade and Broward, 8:51 in the morning, the lower Florida Keys. Otherwise, today we'll have a great deal of sunshine with highs in the 80s going into tonight, 60s all across the board. And on your extended outlook, we spring forward on Sunday, so we'll need to switch those clocks ahead 1 hour before we go to bed on Saturday night. Then for Monday, Tuesday, chance for rain.
Good afternoon, South Florida. It was a chilly one, but so far so good. At least you don't have to worry about rain throughout your lunch hour or the next several days across the area. We do have some advisories in effect. Brush fire warnings for a couple counties around the Sunshine State, and that's because the air is so dry and the humidity is dropping for 4 more consecutive hours to less than 30%. So conditions are just right for brush fires to get triggered out there. So that's why these warnings are in effect, especially for the west coast of Florida. Right now it's 68 degrees in Fort Lauderdale, 65 in Miami, 66 degrees in Key West. Believe it or not, with all of the sunshine out there, we're just not warming up all that much, and we're into the upper 60s around the western suburbs. We still have that steady supply coming in from the west-northwest, with the winds ranging anywhere between 10, 12 miles per hour, with gusts up to 21 around Key West. So the Big View has quiet weather around the nation's midsection into the southeast, with practically cloud-free conditions around the Sunshine State. And as we move on over towards the northeast, it's freezing in New York to 32, 30 in Chicago, 62 degrees, a little bit warmer going into Dallas. Now, we will have high pressure in control, so we'll have another chilly night, and then it will slowly start to move into the western Atlantic Ocean as we go into the weekend. And that means that temperature readings will slowly start to warm back up to seasonal values. In the meantime, St. Patrick's Day looking beautiful. Your marine forecast has a use caution around the bay waters, seas building 2 to 3 feet. For the Florida Keys, we still have a small craft advisory. Coastal waters are choppy. Next high tide at 12:04 tomorrow morning in Miami and at 12:15 in Key Largo. Forecast highs will struggle to reach that 70-degree mark going into tonight. We'll still need to sport around those sweaters and jackets. Just bundle up. As we go into the weekend, South Florida, it will be beautiful. Highs back into the 80s going into Sunday. First day of spring on Monday. No rain to talk about, at least through Wednesday. That's your 7 on 7.